All right, so thank you all for joining us today. It's exciting. We have a lot of people actually on here, which is great. I know with the circumstances, this is probably a good time to have one of these so that we can, I guess, fill some of your day if you're teleworking. So. Um, the people that have called in and cannot see the screen that I have, we are putting information into Beehive, so it hopefully isn't going to be super dry, but the people that called in and can't see the screen, it might be a little bit painful. So, um, with Beehive and ag pollution complaints, we're wanting to have all of the information put in properly so that we can go ahead and query this information, look at how many complaints, violations, species, types, the type of violations that took place, being able to get into the Beehive system and looking up that information easily and quickly is extremely important to us. So that's what today is about, is just making sure that everybody understands exactly how to get this information in here. I do have a few PDFs that I'm going to show you that I've done previously to, I guess, make things a little bit simpler today. But so I'll go ahead and get started. With receiving a complaint at the district level, whether it's passed down from ODA or you guys received it, every complaint that comes in, whether it is valid or not, if it's alleging agricultural pollution, it needs to be put into Beehive. And we need to make sure that we have all that information input, because being able to say that we have X many complaints compared to violations, if not all the violations, or sorry, if not all the complaints are recorded, then we're not going to have an accurate percentage saying of these complaints, this many was violations. And when we are promoting agriculture, it's a good thing to be able to come back and say, there was this many complaints and only, let's say there was 100 complaints and 15 of them were actual violations. That looks good on agricultural side parts. So once you receive that complaint, you'll have an intake form and an investigation form that you can find on our website. This is what they look like. This is the intake form. Our website, by the way, is right here, www.agra.ohio.gov, and you can find this information here. So with this intake form, once you receive the complaint, you would go down through, fill this out completely, and then save it on your computer so that you can upload the information into Beehive. The investigation form looks like this. It's about 3 pages long. It goes down through who the alleged violator is. It gives an area to where you can explain what type of investigation it was, whether there was a violation, and then a place for some notes. So this is what I'm using today to fill out the intake and investigation portion of the complaint that came in, and all of this is made up, so it's not real and didn't actually happen, and you'll see from the names of the alleged violators and everything. So to get started, again, you receive the complaint, you have the intake, and you go into Beehive to put the information in. So you log into Beehive, and you go down under this asset portion. There's a button that says new. You click it, and you go to DSWC project. The project screen pops up. On this project screen, the name is something that's pretty important. We need to have it the exact same every time you put this information into Beehive. So the name of the project needs to be your county, then a dash, the calendar year, a dash, and then the alleged violator. So in this case, we have, I have the complaint in Licking County, 2020, and the alleged violator is Colonel Mustard. And there is a bit of a trend with clues. So if anybody likes that, you'll notice that. So that's going to be the name of the project. That'll be the name and the ID of any event that's created as well. The project description, this is something where we just want it to be very broad, a quick summary. The complaint that came in, we're going to say, is a liquid hog manure application. So that's exactly what we would write here. The project type, and this needs to be pollution complaint every time. There's not one time that you get a pollution complaint and you come into Beehive to record it that you would not have the project type as pollution complaint. It needs to be that every time. Status will be open until it is completed and you no longer are putting time onto this specific project. Project category every time is going to be pollution abatement. It doesn't matter if it is a manure application. Livestock manure is not going to be checked there. It is always going to be pollution abatement whenever it comes to complaints. The initiative type stays blank, and then the program type, again, every time you create a project for inputting complaints here, it's going to be APA, complaint investigation resolution. And then the date, start date is going to be the date that you actually receive the complaint. So this one we're just going to say is today. And then the note portion here, once you get some information from the investigation, it's good to have some notes out front, such as the alleged violators' contact information, so you don't have to go digging through the information in the event in the events below. But again, after you get all this completed, there is a section where it says goal. That's something that is going to be specific to each district. So if you want to tie the goal to something, that's fine. You can fill that in. It's not necessary for our sake in Roansburg, but it is something that you can do as a district. And then you come down and you click the Save button. Whenever you click Save, this Document tab pops up. Currently, we're asking that nothing be put into this Document tab because we want, whenever investigations are completed or whenever the intake's completed, we want that specific to the event to be under the underneath of the event file. So again, you go down here, after you click Save, you come over to where it says New Event, you click it, and then you have a bunch of options that pop up in this box. The first one that we're going to fill out, and this is one that you guys as a district would fill out, will be pollution complaint intake. The ID, again, is going to be the exact same as the project. So if you go back to the project, you can actually just copy this. And then whenever you do create your new event, just paste it, and that's an easy way to keep it exactly the same. The status for this will be in progress until all the intake information is in here. Once the intake information is completed, then you would just turn it to completed. But for our sake right now, it is in progress. Assigned to, this is going to be specific to each district as well. It's going to have your names under here, as well as your program specialist. Because I'm under DSWC, it has all of the DSWC staff. But for our purposes, since it's Licking County, I'm going to include Jared Hiddle on this since he is the program specialist for Licking County and say that it's assigned to him. The assigned to is going to be the person that is in charge of the investigation and putting all the information in after this intake. The incident date can be different from the receive date. The incident date could be a manure application that took place over the weekend, and then you received it on Monday. For the sake of this, we're just going to leave it the same, incident date and receive date. And then the notes section, This is something, again, that we just want it to be a summary, more or less, that it states something simple about the complaint itself. So this one, liquid hog manure application. Complaint is enough. Under county, it's going to be the county that the complaint took place in. The method, this is going to be how you received the actual complaint. So it could be through district observation, drive by and you saw that somebody was applying and weren't following setbacks. Could be verbal, somebody calling into the office or coming into the office and reporting some sort of complaint, or a written complaint, something that was mailed in to you guys. If it's written, it needs to be signed. Verbal, at this time, we're saying, we're offering the ability to remain anonymous. This, for the sake of this one, we're putting it as verbal. That's what I have recorded in the intake form that I created earlier. Watershed, if you're in the WLEB or Grand Lake St. Mary's, go ahead and check that. Otherwise, it's either going to be other or unknown. And then the intake form needs to have a received by. This is going to be the contact information that we can direct somebody to contact. If, let's say, we're involving EPA, we would then give them the information of who received it, because they're going to have the most information since they were the one that actually received the complaint. So in this case, it was me. And I'll put the phone number. And then the email address. All the information is necessary. If you only have one thing, or you're not going to be in the office, you still want to give as much information as possible. The agency, other contact name, and inspector, you can leave that blank. It's not necessary. And then we have the information where complaint name comes in, as well as alleged violator name. So if you do not know who the complainant is, or they wish to remain anonymous, you would just select the checkbox that says anonymous, and you would leave everything else blank. In this case, we have a complainant, Professor Plum. And then his address. Get a Clue Avenue. A lot of the times the complainant wants to have some follow-up, and if they decide to remain anonymous, that's something that we will not be able to provide them. If they do want follow-up information, they will need to give the information of who they are, their phone number or email, something that we can contact them to provide them with the investigation update. So in this case, they gave a phone number and no email. There is no email, just put not available. The next step is the alleged violator. A lot of the times we don't have this information during the intake. We just know location and what the complaint is about. A lot of the times they do not know who the alleged violator name is. If that's the case, I want you guys to put in unknown. However, for this example, we do have an alleged violator that the complainant named. And the location is 8995 East Main Street, which is actually our Reynoldsburg office. And enter as much information as you have. Again, this is a lot of preliminary information that is being input, because it is just the intake. Once the investigation takes place, you'll have more information. Actually, I'm going to change this one. And the phone number. And the alleged violator type, if they are not the landowner, don't check landowner, but if they are, go ahead and hit landowner. After you're done with this, you will go to the side where the map is, and the location which we have here for the alleged violator is our office. So we'll find that location and go to it. And all you do is once you find it, you click it, that yellow dot comes up, and you hit save. Everything's saved now. This map automatically zooms into that location, and all the information is now in the intake form. So the next step, since we did have this test intake form, or the pollution complaint intake form done and completed, you would go to the Documents tab here. That is, let me go ahead and back out. Under the intake, where all this information's at, this Document tab appears after you hit save. So you click the Documents tab and you go down to New Attachment, go to Attach. In the future, currently this isn't working, but in the future, there's this Import PDF. Once we get that working, you'll be able to take that form that you filled out, import it, and then it'll actually suck the information from the investigation form into the information into Beehive, so you won't have to really write the information in twice, once in the form and once into Beehive. But right now, we're asking that you do both because that import is not currently working. So you'll hit Attach, go and find where you have it saved on your desktop, hit Open, and then it comes up on that Documents tab screen. Over here, you can explain what it is. A lot of the times, these sometimes are saved with a funky name or something. So this one, you can just say 4/21/2020 intake form, and then hit save. So you're done with the intake at that point. If you go back, one thing I do want to point out, this receive date and this note is pulled out onto the project screen. So if you go back to the project, you'll see that it does have a note underneath of the for the intake event. It says liquid hog manure application. That was pulled from that past screen. And then also this date is from the receive date. So after you get that information, you go out, you perform an investigation, you come back, you click this new event, and you go to the pollution complaint investigation event. Again, this ID needs to be the exact same as that project screen. I already copied and pasted it, or copied it so I can paste it right there. The location on this map, I do want to point out real quick while it's on my mind, it may not be the same location that is on the intake form. The intake is a lot more broad. In this case, after we performed an investigation, we found that it was in the application took place in the fields behind the office there, so then we would check that. And you can always hit save as many times as you want, but make sure you at least continue to save it as you go, and make sure you save it before you exit the screen. So, okay, back to the information. The status, we're going to have it as under investigation. Once this specific investigation is completed and all the information is put in, then we can go ahead and change it to investigation complete, because it is only talking about specifically this investigation form and the information provided for it. But currently it's under investigation. Assigned to is the person that's going to be performing the investigation and doing the follow-up. The planned investigation date might be different than the actual investigation date. You have 3 days to investigate most complaints, unless there's something that is claiming that there's a discharge to waters of the state or is an imminent threat, then you have 24 hours. But It might not fall on the same day. The actual investigation date, we're going to say it's the same day as the planned investigation date for this sake, and then the time that you went out on that investigation. Again, this note section is something that we just want it to be broad information, something that is simple and short, a summary of what occurred. So I'm going to bring over this investigation form that I have filled out. So we have the address, the time that we went out there, who investigated, which is myself and Jared, who the alleged violator is, and in this case we actually have two alleged violators, one of them being a landowner and one of them being a non-CLM applicator. If you continue to scroll down, the type of investigation, we checked that it was a liquid manure application because the complaint that was called in was for liquid manure, liquid hog manure. During the investigation, we found that there was pollution to waters of the state, in that they must not have followed a best management practice. So we said that it is a violation. To be a violation of our rules, you have to have not following the standards as well as the discharged waters of the state. And then other agencies that are involved. So this is one where EPA was involved, and so was ODA DSWC. And then you have a remarks section. This is where on this form you can do a pretty hefty amount of notes. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but it has a lot of information, all the necessary information in there, being liquid hog manure, the date, where the location of the field is, the application, the weather during the application, the upcoming weather, and who the applicator was, how much they applied. So there's a lot of information on here, and all of it is necessary. The more information, the better. You can never have too much. One of the things I do want to point out, a lot of times it's overlooked, is figuring out the species as well as how many head are at the operation. So in this case, we're saying that it's a hog operation consisting of 2,400 hogs over 55 pounds, and the amount to be permitted is 2,500. So they are under that permitted amount. So it is something that is, it falls on the Division of Soil and Water. And then also it says that EPA spill hotline was notified due to this hog application entering into a roadside ditch and heading towards a catch basin that empties directly into Blacklick Creek. So it has a bit of a follow-up later with EPA too. So again, a lot of information that's on there, but all of that stuff should not be included in the notes section. It should be a very broad summary. And then the DSWC details of which rule was actually violated, and then the species. So that's where I'm pulling all my information from as we input it over here. So under this note, we're going to say that there was a violation from, we'll say a discharge, roadside ditch from a liquid hog manure application, setbacks not followed. And that's enough information that tells us that there was an issue that was out there. It explains what the issue was. And if you want, you can even add something along the lines of EPA involvement. So the incident address is going to be where the actual application took place, and in this case, it's at 8995 East Main Street. And then I'm not going to finish typing that out for the sake of time. And then the county that it's in, and then who actually completed this, the information that's put into Beehive. Sometimes you may be the person that receives the report, which I am a lot of the time. So in this case, if Jared went out there by himself, he sent me his report, didn't have time to put it into Beehive because he's out in the field. He could send it to me, then I can put it in. So I would say that it was completed by me. In this case, we both actually did the investigation. Investigation type. This one is going to be liquid manure application. This right here is where you indicate the exact type of rule that you're going out to look at. So this one being liquid manure application, if it was feedlot runoff or overflow and discharge of manure storage, then you would check facility and production area, or if there was a manure stockpile. Right here is where you indicate the type of complaint that it is. If there was a discharge to waters of the state, and there's a violation, because we have to have discharge as well as not following the standard to be a violation, you would click both of those. The agencies that were involved, and these boxes down here, this is the rules. So you only check these boxes if there is a violation of one of these rules. So in this case, it is Rule 11, land application. If we went out there and there was no discharge to waters of the state and there was no violation, all the information here that is violation discharge to waters of the state wouldn't be relevant because it didn't actually happen, and you would not check this. You would not check Rule 11 because you went out there to inspect a land application. It is only checked if you have a violation of that rule. So in this case, we do. This is one of the areas that whenever we are querying violations to see how many violations we've had during a certain period, some of the times these boxes are checked, just indicating, hey, we went out to look at a land application, or we went out to look at a silage leachate runoff or milk house waste. But again, only check this box if there was a violation. And then the species type, we know from the notes that there was 2,400 head of hogs. And then alleged violator name. In this case, again, there was 2 alleged violators. Colonel Mustard and his address, which again, for the sake of time, I'm going to be short with these. And then if we have the alleged violator's email, then we would enter that. If not, it's not applicable or not available. And then we would also check the type of alleged violator that he is. This one is a landowner. The next one is Mr. Green, who in the notes actually stated that he was Colonel Mustard's brother-in-law, and he lives directly next door. So his address is 8895 East Main, Reynoldsburg. And we don't have his email either. So a lot of the times you do have information gathered that involves the alleged violator's phone number. There's not a place to put it in this area, so you would need to go over to the notes and put, this is where you would put the information for contacting them with by phone number. So. And once you're done and completed with that, you hit the save button. that Documents tab pops up here. You click on it, go to New Attachment, find where you have that form saved, and then 421 2020 investigation form. And hit save. So now that is under Documents. So again, the actual investigation date gets pulled as well as this note back to the project screen, and you can see all that information is located right here underneath of that black section there. So once you're done with that, if you need to go out the next day or the day after and perform another investigation, you would then go in and create a new investigation event. Again, naming it the exact same as you did the other ones, the same as the project name, and you would go through filling all that information back out. Each time you go back out to the field and perform an investigation, a new investigation event needs to be created. So once you perform your investigations and you decide, okay, well, we need to write a warning letter or a notice of deficiency letter that has corrective actions and deadline dates, there's an event for that as well. So at the soil and water level, you would only use this warning letter and this notice of deficiency one. They both have very similar looks, having a place for the ID, the status, a note, and then the date that you sent the letter and the date that they received the letter. The notice of deficiency, same thing, exact same. So let's say that you have an NOD that you wrote. You have it as in progress, and over here you would say SWCD, or in this case it'd be licking. Notice of deficiency, or NOD. And the reason I want this is because Division of Soil and Water, we also write warning letters and notice of deficiencies. So whenever we create ours, or whenever we create ours, we're going to label ours as ODA DSWC NOD, notice of deficiency, so that we can distinguish one from the other on the project screen. So again, in this case, this is looking SWCD, and we'll type it out. And then who it's assigned to, and then the date that it was sent. So let's say it was sent on a Friday, and they received it, we'll just say Friday. The date that it was received is actually the date that it gets pulled. So I always just keep it as the date that it was sent, the same as received. And then you would hit the save button. The Documents tab would come up. And if you look here, I have a notice of deficiency example for you guys, where it has all the information, the rule that was violated, a bit of a narrative, and then it has corrective actions here with deadline dates that need to be put in. So for this sake, it would be incorporate the manure into the soil when field conditions allow to avoid future manure discharge to waters of the state, and putting a deadline date onto that. Depending on the violation, obviously these letters are going to be different each time. And then we do have a template here that you guys can use as well. All of these are going to be made available after this for you guys. And then the warning letter, we also have a warning letter template, and as well as a example. Warning letters, you can have recommendations, but they just cannot have deadlines. So anyways, we did the notice of deficiency. So you would go to, under the Notice of Deficiency event, the Documents tab, New Attachment, and you would attach the Notice of Deficiency letter. And you would put it as Licking SWCD NOD. And the reasoning for that is if they do not follow the corrective actions listed in there and it's referred to ODA, then at that point we would draft up our own notice of deficiency, and we would come in here and create one as well, and it would have the same information, except we would have ODA, DSWC, and OD. And then hit save, and then add the document, obviously. So once you come, let me go back. Let me change this date to the 30th so that we have a timeline that we can see. So then we go back out to the project screen, and you can see that this starts telling a story. The intake came in on 4/21/2020, a liquid hardware application complaint. The investigation took place on the 21st. There was a discharge to a roadside ditch. Setbacks weren't followed. Here's this information for Colonel Mustard's number. Then we have a notice of deficiency that is Licking SWCD's notice of deficiency, as well as another notice of deficiency that's ODA DSWC's NOD. So it's very easy to understand just from the project screen what has happened and what step we are on. So once it gets up to our level, then we have all these other ones: emergency or administrative order, notice of opportunity for hearings, litigation at the Attorney General's office, all that stuff that you do not have to worry about. That's at ODA's level. So the ones that you need to worry about are the intake, the investigation, the warning letter, and the notice of deficiency. The resolution, whenever this is created, this is something that will be created by DSWC staff. So your program specialist or somebody from Reynoldsburg will create the resolution event, naming it exactly as it was, but this is stuff that you do not have to do. You may notice that the resolution event is created before the actual case is resolved. It'll just be checked as resolution in progress. It'll be assigned to a specific person, and then have the receive date, and then at this point there was no resolve date. Once there is a resolve date, let's say we resolved it on 5/1/2020, we would say the resolution type was enforcement, since we went and sent a notice of deficiency letter. And in the notes we can say that corrective actions in NOD completed. And then any kind of information that needs to be tagged into the resolution as well. But again, this is something, the resolution is something that the soil and water districts do not create, and they do not make any changes to it. Once everything is done and everything is completed, the resolution, you'll notify your program specialist, and they'll go in and change it to resolved, save it. And then this area on the project screen, the status being open, once you are done tagging your time to it, it'll be changed to completed and saved, and then it is done. So again, one of the things I do want to stress is that these need to be put in even if there isn't a violation. If it's a complaint that comes in and it's not valid, there still needs to be an intake investigation form completed, and then we'll create a resolution event. And under this, we have the ability to have it changed to unsubstantiated complaint, and then we would call it that and save it. So that is currently how we are having you guys enter this into Beehive. Obviously, once information gets updated in Beehive and you know, different versions rolled out, we're going to have changes to this stuff, and we're going to adapt to it. But currently, this is how we're wanting you to do it, and hopefully this is something that is a little bit more simple now, and this wasn't too painful for you guys to listen to and watch. But yeah, this is what we're asking you to do. So at this time, I'm going to ask Frances if she wants to mention about the Beehive PowerPoint that we're going to be sending out. If she wants to mention that, I'll let her talk for a moment.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to let you know that we have developed a Beehive PowerPoint, which is a step-by-step to go through from the beginning of receiving a complaint all the way through of attaching all of the documents, all the entry forms. That's all going to be in a step-by-step. It is about a 100-page PowerPoint, but it does break it down in each section if you want to start from the beginning or if you just want to help with a certain section. So right now, I've sent that out for draft comments from a few people. I'm waiting on some more comments to come back. And then we are going to make that available as a reference tool so that everybody can respond to entering the complaints in a timely fashion and getting the information in there correct. We understand that the program is very complicated, especially for the districts that only enter 1 or 2 or 5 complaints a year. So we're just trying to maintain consistency statewide so that we can run the queries, and when we're looking at the information, that it's entered correctly. So if anybody has any comments or corrections after we get that PowerPoint available for reference, please let Jason or I know and we'll get it corrected. But that should be available probably in the next week or 2. It's going to depend on the comments that I get back from some folks that are supposed to be looking at it.
Thank you, Frances. Now, looking on the side here, there are a few questions. It says, can we get a list of the DSWC detail numbers, what they represent? Some of us don't know what they are. So that's something that we are asking whenever the next version of Beehive gets rolled out, that we have the description next to those numbers. But yes, we can definitely get that information to you guys. It is available again on our website, but there's, I guess it's a APAP handbook that we have that has all of the information on it too, that we're in the process of updating as well. So we can definitely get that information out to you guys to let you understand what the numbers represent, and really what they are is Ohio Administrative Code numbers, as well as a Ohio Revised Code number that these rules are under. And I'm reading another comment that asking, will the investigation forms be emailed out, or do we need to get those off the DSWC website? We're going to eventually make them available on the website. However, if you want them immediately, if you want to send myself an email or your program specialist an email, and then we can have them distributed out to you guys at that point. So I think we can go ahead and open it up to any questions that are not written on the side conversation. I'm not sure if there's a way to like raise a hand or how we want to do this. Emily, do you have any suggestions?
No, I would just go ahead and start asking your questions.
Okay, so do we have any questions? I'll pause for 10 more seconds, and if we do not have any other questions, then we can go ahead and dismiss. Okay, Well, I appreciate everybody coming on today to watch this, and hopefully it was informative. I know that it definitely is a process putting this information in here. That's why we felt like it was something that we needed to get out to you guys and at least provide some sort of visual, whether it was live, whether it's through a PowerPoint. We decided to do both to make this a little bit easier on you guys. So in the future, any questions, by all means, get a hold of myself or Francis Springer. Peter McDonough is going to be assisting with APAP as well. So there's definitely, or even your program specialist. So somebody just asked, will a recording be available? And yes, the answer is we are going to have a recording available on what we just did. And again, that PowerPoint that's going to be sent out is going to be, it's extremely informative. And once you guys see it, obviously, as Francis said, get back with us if you have any comments. So thank you. Appreciate it.